On this episode of China Uncensored, if the Chinese regime thinks it can take a bite out of Australia like it were some kind of Vegemite sandwich, they've never tasted Vegemite before. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Something terrible has happened in Australia. Something that will make your skin crawl.
Good day, losers.
Don't worry, that's not a real movie. It's just an extremely bizarre Australia tourism ad. What I'm actually talking about is much worse than a Crocodile Dundee reboot. Okay, slightly worse. It's the Chinese Communist Party's ongoing campaign to subvert Australian politics and society. There's been a recent revelation that millions of dollars worth of campaign contributions came from donors with links to the Chinese regime. Yeah, China? You call that a knife? Well, this is a knife. Australia is fighting back by tightening rules on foreign investment. You see, Chinese state-owned enterprises have been investing in critical Australian electrical and gas infrastructure. And there's been a recent surge of purchases of Australian agricultural land. This is a potential national security concern, letting a foreign, sometimes hostile, authoritarian regime control your energy and food supplies. Imagine if you could do that in Settlers of Catan. Maybe it wouldn't take so long to get through a game. But in real life, letting another country control your resources is a bad idea. So Australia is putting in place some new rules. One of them is that agricultural land must be widely marketed for at least 30 days to Australians before it can be offered to foreigners. Yes, foreigners in general. No particular foreigners. We're not naming names here, but it's China. See, Australia has received more Chinese overseas investment than any other country except the United States. And if you adjust for GDP, Australia has 14 times more. That's a lot of cans of Foster's. That's Australian for beer. What's that, Shelley? Okay, I'm being told real Australians drink VB. Anyway, all this Chinese investment has made Australia's intelligence agency ASIO nervous. They have a security rating system from negligible to extreme. And I'll give you one guess as to which country was just ranked extreme.
In a couple of examples, we have the threat level at extreme.
And government officials have told 9 News that China is listed by ASIO as an extreme threat.
ASIO also warned that Chinese interference isn't limited to politics, but across Australian society as a whole. Other countries have made similar moves, restricting foreign investment from Chinese companies, also over security concerns. Because, as I've explained in previous episodes, all large Chinese companies have significant connections to the Communist Party, even privately owned ones. For example, last month, the U.S. government blocked China's Ant Financial from acquiring U.S. company MoneyGram. The U.K. has made similar moves. Of course, the Chinese regime says all this is just silly. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson even took a page out of the China Uncensored playbook and went all sarcastic on us. I assume she's a big fan. She said that if Australians regard all the millions of Chinese visiting or living in Australia as spies, then no wonder Australians feel nervous. What a funny bone tickler. Except her sarcasm completely mischaracterizes what's happening. In fact, Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has made it pretty clear that Australia's security concerns are not about targeting Chinese Australians or even visiting Chinese.
Now, I want to be very clear. We are focused on the activities of foreign states and their agents in Australia and not the loyalties of Australians who happen to be from another country.
And a mountain of evidence is piling up about the danger Chinese-backed companies present.
Australia has backed a new United States defence strategy naming Russia and China a greater threat to national security than Islamic terrorism.
So the Chinese regime falls back on accusations of racism, saying Australians are just being prejudiced against Chinese people.
Such comments pander to certain irresponsible reports in Australian media. They are full of prejudice against China.
Except that's not going to work, because interference from the Chinese regime has gotten so bad. It's got some Australians saying, you know what? Our alliance with the U.S. is actually pretty good by comparison.
18 months ago, I couldn't imagine me taking this position and defending the US alliance.
This is pretty significant. A huge part of Australia's economy relies on China. According to Stratfor, China accounts for 30% of Australia's trade. But the push for regulating Chinese investment has been building since 2015. That's when a Chinese company leased a major Australian port. That caused waves of concern not just in Australia, but also in the US. In 2016, Australia blocked China's attempt to buy a controlling share of Ausgrid, a major Australian electrical network company. The shares were bought by 2 Australian pension funds instead. So Australia's new rules affect agriculture and the energy grid, but they don't cover Australia's second biggest industry, mining. And right now, an Indian company is seeking Chinese investment money to buy a $13 billion coal mine in Australia. The Chinese money is sort of their last option. The local Australian banks all turned it down because they don't want to be caught up in a project that could have huge environmental costs. But China, they're fine with it. After all, those aren't China's resources at risk. The Australian government's increased controls on foreign investment are probably coming at a good time. After all, they wouldn't want those 37,000 miles of pristine beach and all those wineries to belong to a foreign country. Otherwise, what would they put in their tourism ads? Actually, that beach does look pretty nice. I think I'm due for another vacation. Well played, Australia. So what do you think of Australia curbing investment from China? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. Wait! Before you go, I have something important to tell you. You know, not many companies are brave enough to advertise on China Uncensored. But there is one I want you to know about. They sell amazing food. Thrive Life. And unlike a lot of other meal delivery food, they've got GMO-free, gluten-free, and organic options. But unlike Blue Apron, Thrive Life meal packs won't go rotten in your fridge after a couple of days. Thrive food is freeze-dried, so it lasts several months, even years. I know what you're thinking. Freeze-dried food? Are you sure about this? I was skeptical too, until they sent me a box of samples. And I can honestly tell you, it's delicious. They sent me this whole box. There's a ton of amazing food in here, everything from snacks to meals. My personal favorite is the South Pacific style stir-fried with pulled pork. Now I know it comes in a box, but this is what it looks like cooked. And it only took me minutes to make. And they sell hundreds of other foods. Uncensoring China takes a lot of energy. And I don't always have time to plan meals. I can't tell you how many times food has gone bad in my fridge because I can cook it for a couple of days. Thrive Life basically solved this for me. It's super convenient, tastes great, and I don't have to worry about it going bad. It's also more affordable than Blue Apron. I provided a link below to order. Just try 1 or 2 meals. You're gonna love it. And China Uncensored gets a commission on any purchase you make. So this is a great way to help the show and get some tasty food out of it. Plus, if Kim Jong-un ever does launch a nuke, you'll have all the food you need in the post-apocalyptic future. So help the show out and buy yourself some treats. Thrive Life. Click the link below.